Okay, to make the sides for your guitar, you're gonna get a big long board of the mahogany in the wood storage room. Come over to the upcut saw, and we need to cut off a piece 32 inches long. Now these sides are also gonna be 5 inches wide, and so be sure that your board you grab is more than 5 inches wide originally. And we'll set our stop to 32 inches. And then we'll get our board cut. Joint one edge on the jointer. We're going to rip the board on the table saw to 5 inches wide. Set your fence exactly to 5 inches. Lock down the fence. Be sure the blade height is high enough to cut through the board. And the flat jointed edge you just jointed, make sure that is up against the fence nice and tight. On the planer, we just want to clean up both faces. The faces of your board on the mahogany is a little bit rough, and we want to leave this as thick as possible still. And so right now your board is roughly about 1 inch thick, maybe a little bit more than 1 inch on the mahogany here. And so don't take off too much, but just take off enough that it cleans it up. Now what I usually do is do my first pass about 1.1 on one face, and then I set my fence to 1 inch, or set my planer to 1 inch for the second pass as I flip my board over. If you need to, and your board maybe is exactly 1 inch thick originally, you might have to have your first pass at 15/16 and then 14/16 for the other pass. We're going to take this one board here, and we need to make 2 sides out of it. And to do that, we're going to do what's called resaw the board, which is we're splitting the board down the middle, and you're going to get 2 pieces out of it. And these sides, when they're all said and done, they're going to be very, very thin, actually 0.090 inches thick. And so really with this being about 1 inch thick, to get 2 pieces out of it, we're still going to have quite a bit extra. And so what I want you actually to do is we're going to get 3 pieces from it. That'll help in case we make a mistake later on with one of the bendings of our sides, so we'll have an extra one. Or if both your sides work out, we just have an extra maybe for someone else later on. And so we're actually going to split this into thirds. We're going to probably have our first side about here, and then our second piece is going to be about there. And so we're going to try our best we can to get them equal, and if we're not perfectly equal, that's okay, but the 3 pieces we're going to get out of this should be enough to make at least 2 sides. And so we have to do this on the table saw with the guard removed. Have the teacher help you get the table saw set up and all positioned right. We can't do this in one pass. The blade, we're going to have it only raised up maybe about 1 inch or 2 for the first pass. Then we're going to raise it up a little higher for the next pass as we keep going, and we're going to be able to split this board down. So we're going to set our fence roughly to 1/4 inch. And this should allow us to get 3 pieces out of that 1 inch board as we go through here. We're going to tip your board up against the fence as we run this. Again, the blade height is only held up about maybe 2 inches tall, maybe 1.5 inches high. We'll turn it on. We got to make sure this board stays really firm on the fence and not twisting on us or coming away from the fence at all. Okay. You're going to flip your board over, keeping the same face against the fence so we can get another pass. As you can see, we're not quite cutting through the whole thing yet, so we're going to raise the blade up a little bit and run it again. Flip our board over, same face against the fence. And that should be our first side. And we're going to repeat that same process. This time we're going to have the other face against the fence. This one may have a little bit of table saw marks or a little flat, so use the part that we know was planed on the planer against the fence when we do this again. Get that blade lowered, about 1.5 inches high for the first pass. Now we'll raise it up. Keep that same face against the fence. Should get our 3 sides out of here. These boards now need to get down to 0.090 thick. And right now they're 1/4 inch from when we resaw them on the table saw. My planer is what we're gonna use first, and my planer cannot go very thin. And so what we'd use is what's called a carrier board. It's just a board that's exactly 1 inch thick already. And we place our boards on top of here. And it has a little lip right here that will hold your board, prevent it from flying backwards, and we just add on 1 inch. So when we go to the planer, if this is a 1/4 inch thick right now, we just go 1.25, and that would be 1 1/4. And so this is actually wide enough that you should be able to get both your boards on here. We're going to set our planer to 1.20 for our first pass. Then we're going to flip these over and go 1.150 for the second pass. Again, it's just adding on 1 inch to our thickness. After planing your boards to 0.150, you're going to come over to the time saver sander here, and we need to get our boards down to 0.090 is your final pass. We're going to start at 0.150, and then we're going to go 1/100 of an inch smaller each time. So your first pass is 0.150, then 140, 130, 120, 100, and then last 0.090. Go ahead and run both boards at the same time. When making the adjustments, just type in the number and then hit start. So this is 140, start. We'll flip the boards over and get the other face and just keep alternating which faces run through the sander each time. Again, you're gonna do your final pass at 0.090. After getting your two sides down to 0.090 on the time saver sander, you're going to come and trace a pattern on here, the shape of the sides, and it does have a flat edge on the bottom part, so line that flat edge with the very bottom edge of your board, and we're just going to trace this pattern on here. There's also a spot where it says a bend line. You need to draw that line on your board here because that's where we're going to have the middle bend of your guitar side when we go to bend it. So transfer that line over to your board and we'll draw that onto your board as well. And you're going to trace this mold on both of your sides. We're going to use the bandsaw to cut out the shape of your sides. We need to make sure we lower the guard so it's just a little bit above your board. And if you can put your board just next to the blade there, you can then lower the guard enough that those little ball bearing guides just stick a little bit above your board, enough that your fingers won't get in there. When you cut this out on the bandsaw, you have to be very careful to leave your line. Don't cut off your line when you're cutting. So just do a good job on staying away from your line on the outside of it as you're cutting. We're going to come over to our horizontal belt sander and sand our board down to the line. Be sure not to sand too much off. But again, we just want to keep that taper. You notice that this side goes straight and then it tapers smaller this way. So keep that taper when sanding, but again, just go right down to your line. Okay, once you have both your sides sanded down to the line, and again, making sure you have your bend line drawn on where it was at. These are now ready to put in the bend machine.